Hello and welcome to another fight, Breakdown Lies, Dirty Lies and Statistics. This is a fight I'm actually really keen to do. I've been really looking forward to this. So I'm glad that one of the most monosyllabic icons of famous people like Cher, Flea, Drake, and now we have Sam Flake. That was a good one. Thank you for joining us, Sam. You fucking icon of mathematical genius. And we're about to kick off, so I'm glad to be able to do this one. This one in particular, I'm a big fan of Chimaev in particular, but I like Costa as well. Yikes says, g'day. Sam, how are we?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you. Sam, for those that don't know, is a mathematician and he puts together all these stats and he's written out this program. This is all his work, and we just like to have a chat about fights and we look at it together and able to get an understanding, maybe for those that like to bet. We're not telling you what to bet on or who to bet on or anything like that, but you're able to look at some stats and have a good analysis of what could happen in the fight. With the predictions, I try not to go, this person's going to win 100%, but I like to think that you can kind of make predictions on what would happen due to trends and things that you see people fighting. A lot of the times people have a really good idea anyways, like the viewers are pretty educated. You have a good idea of what is happening, but sometimes when you have the stats and the data to back it up, you're able to see the trends a little bit more clearly. So do you want to add anything, Sam?
No, not really. So just not too
Kick
much.
off, Lynn. Let's go.
Yeah. So here we've got just a bit of a breakdown of Costa and Chimaev. So you've got their overall kind of height, reach, stats, their wins and losses. So each have 6 wins in the UFC, and Costa's got the 2 losses, and Khamzat's undefeated. So
can I just give a quick thing on that? It's a very interesting thing because a lot of the times when we're looking at these two guys, you think that Costa is way more experienced than Chimaev, and it's actually Costa in total, not just in the UFC, has something like 16 fights, and Chimaev has 12. So the actual like combat difference is not that much. And in the UFC, I think that's Costa might have like 2 more fights than him. Is that correct? Yeah, 2 more fights in the UFC. So it's not actually that much more difference in experience, which is crazy because you'd think that he does. He's definitely fought, in my opinion, the higher caliber of guys. But I mean, some of the guys that, especially when he's fought, like lately, Burns, Holland, Jing Liang, Meerschaert, he's fought some veterans of the game. No, they're no jokes. He just ran through them. That's all. Yeah, that was my little thing on Costa. Sorry if you want to continue, Sammy.
No, that's probably a good point that Chimaev has run through them, because it does kind of hold back from some of the stats because he's finished a lot of fights super early in that first round. You don't have that build up of stats in the second and third round that you normally would with a lot of other fighters. So the only fight that he's had that's gone the distance has been with Gilbert Burns.
And that fight was against a former title contender and one of the better guys at welterweight, like a really good fighter. And he won that fight. He came out and won that fight without much experience. So just one of the things that when you're looking at the fighter comparison, I think in this fight, Khamzat's going to have the reach advantage. He's going to have the height advantage. And in my opinion, he'll have the experience advantage in combat because he came up out of Chechnya wrestling. He was I believe a bronze medalist, they say, at Russian juniors, which is under 20s. That level is extremely high. You'll have guys that, like, if you medal if you have a podium finish at the Russian nationals, you'll pretty much make the national team of any other country. So, maybe not 100% you'll make it every single country, but definitely you're in the running for a lot of those countries. And him placing third, like he would have had thousands of wrestling matches, hundreds upon hundreds of wrestling matches, and then as an adult, he placed first in Sweden, which is not a powerhouse wrestling country, but still he placed 2016, 2018, 2015. He placed first at Swedish Nationals. And the interesting thing there was that was done at 86 kilograms twice. And then in 2018, that was done at 92 kilograms. So I actually lean towards the fight experience with this fellow here, with Chimaev. And also Chimaev, it's not on here because it's not in the UFC, but Chimaev has a big win over Aliskerov, who just recently beat Phil Hawes, who's going to be fighting Imavov. Now, Aliskerov, for those that don't know, but you are fight fans, he's a combat sambo world champion. I think he's won 4 world titles in combat sambo, and he's the only person, or one of not the only person, but one of very few people to have a win over Amasov, and Amasov is the current reigning Bellator welterweight champion. So that's who Aliskerov has beat in combat sambo, and he's beat him more than once. I believe he's beat him twice, and Hamzat has a win over him. So as far as I'll probably go back a little bit on my word, I think their resumes are probably similar in that, of course, Israel's Israel and Yoel is Yoel, but I think Yoel was a little bit past it. And with Israel, Costa was absolutely outclassed in that fight. But I'll talk more about that a little bit later on. Sorry, Sam, do you want to talk any more about this?
Just to kind of pull out the very kind of different profiles in terms of their fighting style. So obviously, if you look down the bottom left, you can see the details of each of the wins, and they've got all these knockouts and stuff, punches to their body or the head at distance, so stand-up punches. And you can see that in the stats as well. So their significant strikes, for instance, average per round, Chimaev's 24, whereas it's nearly 28 for Costa. In terms of, and it's for Chimaev, he's 21 strikes to the head, landing average per round, whereas Costa's only landing 15 to the head, but then really his body strikes strikes to the body outweighing Chimaev's as well. So he's got 12 strikes per round compared to the body compared to Chimaev's 2 strikes per round to the body.
I think that's one of the things. I'll just see. Are we done on this slide, Sammy? Because I think the next slide probably has stuff that's pertinent to what you just said, but that I want to kind of, when we're talking about this, because we're talking about Costa. I think, again, he cops a lot of flack, like saying the Israel fight, and there's a few other fights, but this guy's he's not as experienced. He started fighting later in life, and he was like a bodybuilder or a powerlifter. He was a weightlifter of some description. And so he didn't, like what he's able to do. And when you're talking about the body strikes and that, he's actually quite refined for where he's at in his career. But when you put him in against one of the better kickboxers of all time in Israel, and that's kind of Costa's bread and butter in as far as the UFC is concerned. Like he's a striker, right? And so he's got a decent vocabulary of strikes against guys that are not those upper echelon strikers. You know what I mean? He's going to struggle against an Israel every single time. So yes, Sammy, if you want to take us through it.
Yeah, so this is just a fighter breakdown for Costa for kind of everything. On the left-hand side, you've got his offense, so all the punches, kicks, everything, takedowns and stuff that he's throwing and landing per round, just for the first 3 rounds, because in comparison, Chimaev has only had 1 round or 1 fight that's gone the 3 rounds. And then on the right-hand side, you've got the defensive aspect. So this has it's the average landed per round by the opponent on Costa on the top right-hand side, and then the average attempted as well. So you can see how many his opponent's actually throwing at him and how many are actually landing as well.
He's the thing with Costa as well, he likes to, he likes to come forward, back you up against that cage, and he likes to cut the cage off with very powerful kicks. He struggled to do that with Israel for many reasons, like Israel's length, Israel's IQ, and the fact that when he fights, he kicks the left-hand side of the right-handed fighter, right? Because they're both standing orthodox. So he's kicking this side of the right-handed fighter, and it makes it a lot easier to catch the kicks. It makes it a lot easier. It doesn't do as much damage. He was trying to do that to Israel. It was going to be to no effect, but not to no effect, but it was never going to be successful. Israel was going to catch his kicks or counter them. And I see that being very dangerous with Chimaev. I see that both these guys are susceptible to being calf kicked, but I think that if Paulo is going to kick that closed side, I think that kicking the calves of Chimaev and making him move away is going to be what's important. What's interesting as well is when he is kicked, because Chimaev wants to draw out big strikes from people. He wants, how I always say you got to kick with a kicker, because then the legs of the kicker are doing something other than just kicking you. A lot of the times Chimaev will start off with a high kick. Bo Nickel does that too. They throw the big high kicks. Nakamura throws the high kicks, because then you're going to kick back, and then that opens you up for them to take you down. Same as a big right hand. If you throw a big right hand, your hips square off and they can double leg you. So it's going to be very interesting. Sorry, Sam, you were saying the same thing. You were saying something else?
No, just probably pointing out this. You kind of see an increase on the right hand side charts. You can see that there's in the third round, there's really an increase in the strikes that his opponent lands on him. And there's an increase in the output from his opponent in that third round, and there's an increase in those that actually land as well.
So Costa tends to slow down significantly in the third round, according to the data?
Yeah, in relation to his opponent. So, yeah.
Okay. And now we have Khamzat.
Yeah, so this one's a little bit difficult because, as we said before, the third round has only been with Gilbert Burns. But yeah, really, you can see that first round as well. He's obviously gone in, takedowns, and then gone from them. And considering that he's had 6 wins and 3 are from submissions, 2 dasses and a rear naked choke. So he's really gone in, gone for the takedown, and then gone for the submission as well.
If we look back here, does it say for Paulo how many times people have tried to take him down, and does it say that here, or is it just striking?
Yeah, so they've tried to take him down twice, and they've got. Oh no, sorry, that's ground strikes. Yeah, they've only tried to take him down twice, and he's only had like zero official takedown. So no one's actually been able to take him down and hold him down.
Well, Vittori took him down from memory, but it wasn't anything massively significant. And I think Romero did end up getting him down at one stage, and he ended up on his back against Rockhold. But just like, I don't know how they did the stats and that, but he's got good takedown defense. So I just don't think it's going to be good enough against Khamzat. Khamzat's going to draw. I do believe Khamzat's going to draw a squaring of the hips from Costa. I think he's going to either catch a kick to the closed side. I think he'll do that, or he'll time a calf kick, like the catching of a calf kick, which is a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to do, but like if someone's going to do it, it's going to be him. Or force Costa into an exchange and then go. The thing with Khamzat is the way he slips, and you see this in the Gilbert Burns fight, he slips to his left, like inside, and so he throws a big right hand and also drops his level a lot of the times to shoot. Paulo's got like kind of short arms for that division, and he loves to throw those rips. He loves to throw the rips to the body, the uppercuts. Both guys throw the uppercut, and shovel hooks that Hamzat does. But I think it's going to be interesting with the level change and the slipping to the inside on a guy like Costa that really, really digs down and throws big shots. I don't think that if they get into the grappling exchanges, I don't think that Costa's going to be able to keep Hamzat off him. Like, he might defend it a couple of times, but I just feel that Hamzat is in every scramble is going to find the better position. I just don't see Costa being able to keep up with it over 3 rounds. I just don't see it. Costa does good to defend with the whizzer and dig his underhooks in. I just don't think those exchanges are going to occur in that manner. If you watch the way that Hamzat attacks his double legs and that, he's really master of the body lock as well, and he works himself up behind the person and into a body lock. So his wrestling's a different level to. Whilst Yoel Romero was a silver medalist, but he was a silver medalist at the Sydney Olympics, which was in 2000. So it was a long time ago. You're talking about a very current, very young, very hungry guy. So I don't see him being able to stop the takedown or even that pressure against the cage. I just don't see it, which is going to take a lot of the energy from Costa, because a lot of those fights that you're looking at, he still had his way. He still won the fight. But even then, he slowed down in the third. So he's a bit of an enigma too, Costa, because he lost to Vettori over 5 in a fight where he missed weight and they fought at light heavyweight. So I don't know. It's funny. I'm just going to answer a few of these questions, Sammy, that people have written up. So just Yike says, "G'day." Jemry Smith says, "I'm shocked how few fights Costa has." Yeah, it's crazy. You think he's been around for ages. Mitch G says, "Hey Fab." Mitch G says, "Shout outs to Carlos Nembucos." Shout out to Carlos Nembucos. I don't know who this person is, but shout out. Dylan Young says, "Do you feel Polo has FL?" I don't know what that means. Ray Stone, the man himself, the legend, the myth, says, "I might have missed the start, but have you touched on if you think Costa's size will be an advantage with defending the takedowns?" The thing is, I don't know how much. I was just actually touching on that. I don't know how much bigger Costa will actually be come fight night. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, because we haven't seen Chimaev on after he's moved to middleweight, if you like, because we've seen him at middleweight, but he was going back and forwards between middleweight and welterweight. Now he's been middleweight, like he's been training. He's known the fight's been on for a long time. I believe this move to middleweight is permanent, irrespective of what he says about, you possibly go back down for it. I don't think so. I think that's it. I think he's going to middleweight. I think that he's in a position at middleweight where he could fight for the title if he beats Hamzat. So he's very well aware of that. So I don't even know that Costa will be bigger than him. When you look at it frame-wise and that, like we said earlier, the height of Hamzat is 6'2", 6'3", 6'2", and Costa's 6 foot, 6'1", give or take. And so, and he's got the longer reach too, so he's actually a longer, bigger, like longer framed kind of guy than Costa. Costa's a very put together individual, but I don't know that he'll actually be bigger in there. That's one of the things that I was saying. That's a bit of an enigma, because we haven't seen either one of them properly fight in middleweight for a long time. Costa, when he fought Vettori, fought him at light heavyweight and still lost, in a fight that it was bizarre. That was fucking bizarre. Can't take anything from it. And then he fought an old Rockhold, right? 38 years old Rockhold, who in his heyday was one of the best middleweights to ever do it. Fought him at altitude, clearly won, but it was over 3 rounds. And so I can't say to you, I can really get a good grasp on what these guys are actually going to look like when they fight each other, and will it be an advantage? I'm sure he's been working diligently on his wrestling, and I think because he started late in his life for fighting, his improvements are still like, on a, I don't know what the term is, Sam, but I don't know, exponential or something. Like he'd still make much more improvements, So I think it won't be so much in his strength, but more in his technical improvements, because it's not like the level that this guy Hamzat has wrestled at. It's the strength is not what's going to freak him out. You know what I mean? It'll require you to have made technical adjustments. And like I said earlier, his wins at nationals in Sweden were actually 2 times at 86, which is actually a little bit heavier than middleweight. And his last win was a national title at 92 kilograms. And while Sweden isn't a powerhouse wrestling nation, you still having to wrestle some decent guys at that weight. So I don't think that it'll be the size in and of itself, because I think that unless Costa has made massive improvements, which he might have, I think Chimaev will be too slick in that department. That doesn't mean that he might not run into an uppercut or something, or Costa won't punch his head off. I don't know. Sammy?
Yeah, we can probably go to the next one where we start looking. So both fighters have similar accuracy in terms of significant strikes and average landed per round, with Chimaev landing more head strikes and more ground strikes per round. So that's kind of the clear standout. The only other one is obviously from Costa, lands double the strikes from distance, so double his stand-up strikes from Chimaev. That's really driven by strikes to the body as well. So, on average per round, Chimaev's only landing, 10 strikes, from distance per round, whereas Costa's landing, a lot more. He's landing double, and then similarly with the body, he's landing a lot more to the body in comparison to Chimaev as well.
He lands big shots to the body. I just don't think he's got the footwork and the ability. I actually don't know that he's got the striking advantage per se against Chimaev. Like Chimaev moves well. Like he's a bit wild and he leaves himself open. But from the last time he fought till now, like Costa, I think there'll be vast improvements in his striking. And ironically, I think there'll be vast improvements in Costa's grappling, in his wrestling grappling. But you see that with Chimaev, whilst the stats like this, they don't do him justice, I think, for his stand-up, in that even when he fought Gilbert, like Gilbert touched him up, but you see how he could fight from both stances, orthodox and southpaw, and he actually dropped Gilbert when he switched and hit him with that jab from the southpaw stance, and that's a really good way to stop a blitz. And Gilbert had to keep making that. He had to blitz to come in, swinging to come in. And so when he kind of backed Gilbert up against the fence, he changed to southpaw and hit him with that jab and dropped Gilbert. I think that Gilbert was one of the worst matchups for Chimaev in that division. Like Gilbert's like 4 times Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. And whilst he's more of like a top game player, plays a 50-50, gets on top, gets a sweep. That's his game for jiu-jitsu, for Brazilian jiu-jitsu rules. But as far as like his guard work and his ability off his back, I don't think he was ever going to submit Chimaev off his back. But what people don't understand is the efficiency that Gilbert would have in the grappling exchanges, and the danger that he still possesses in those exchanges, and the fact that Gilbert is still going to be more comfortable on his back if he gets put there than 99% of other welterweights on the roster. So whilst he doesn't want to be on his back, he's not going to be in the position that other guys will be on. I don't think if Chimaev puts Costa on his back, Costa's going to be in trouble, and Gilbert Burns didn't have that problem. This is a really big thing. And when you dig that underhook from half guard to get up, that's when you start to open yourself up to the Darces and all the other stuff that Chimaev is very, very good at. Every time you scramble, he's going to get the better position. And even if Costa explodes and gets up, kind of touching on what Ray said, let's say he is that much bigger and he is that much stronger, he's not going to do it. He's not going to beat Chimaev to the position technically. He'll have to explode, and there's only so many times you can explode. That's my opinion on that. Sammy?
No, just in that, I was just thinking in that Gilbert Burns Chimaev fight, I was just looking the actual ground control, 143 seconds overall was attributed to ground control for Chimaev, whereas they only gave Gilbert Burns 6 seconds of ground control for that as well. So for that entire fight.
I would say that Gilbert didn't have those 6 seconds either. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he didn't really control Chimaev on the ground at any stage, really. But let's say he did, you know, and you're talking about one of the best BJJ guys in the welterweight division, if not the best that I can think of. BJJ guys I'm talking about. Overall grapplers we can discuss, you know, this goes on forever. But BJJ guys, that's the thing. I just don't see Paulo having that ability if he gets put in this position. I'm not saying Paulo has no chance. We'll get to Paulo in a second. Anyways, Semi, you were saying?
Oh, no, that was it. I could probably slide on to the next one. Yeah, so it looks very busy here, but it's really I just included all the 5 rounds that Costa's fought as well, just for comparison, because we're going into a 5-rounder. And then, yeah, so Costa has much higher accuracy when it comes to striking the body and overall strikes from distance, which we've looked at before as well. Chimaev appears to lose accuracy as each round progresses, but that's just what it comes out as for round 1, round 2, round 3, as we just said. The Gilbert Burns fight is the only fight that's actually gone the distance for Chimaev as well. So those last couple of rounds are really just against Gilbert Burns.
And Sammy, do you think that when you're looking at this, when you're looking at all the strikes in total, how much does Costa slow down, or if at all, between the 3rd and the 5th?
He doesn't appear to be, if anything, or not really slowed down, because this is just looking at the accuracy, but those he actually increases his accuracy in the last 2 rounds.
And his output?
If you go to the next slide, it'll actually have his total landed or average landed per round.
I think, though, in the 5th round, he hasn't fought many, if any, and that was against Vettori, and that was like a little bit. So that's why when you're looking at the statistics as well, in particular these two, it's funny because the statistics are kind of, in my opinion, they're a little bit skewed because of who they fought, how they fought, and the amount of fights that these guys have had. It's like I said, you think Costa's been around for so long, and he actually hasn't had that many. He's had like 2 more fights than Chimaev in the UFC, and 4 more in total in his whole career. So that's a very interesting thing when you start to think about like actual experience and timing the octagon, et cetera, et cetera. And he's got a lot of early finishes as well. So it's very interesting in that regard.
Yeah, so Costa lands more strikes on average for the first 2 rounds in comparison with Chimaev. But again, and you have to caveat this, like we've been doing the whole time with, Chimaev's first 2 rounds, a lot of it has been takedowns straight into the grappling and his 2 dasses and that as well. So that does skew it then for the first 2 rounds as well. In the 3rd round, Chimaev dramatically increases the number of strikes landed, but again, bear in mind that only one of his fights has made it to the 3rd round.
I think though this fight's scheduled for 3 rounds. It's co-main. I think, from my understanding. Like just from what I'm reading here, it says on Saturday, October 21st at the Etihad Arena, blah, 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 Costa will meet Hamzat in a 3-round middleweight fight. So just saying that in case somebody sues us. That's all. That's the last thing we need. All right, moving right along.
Yeah, so comparing grappling performance between the two, Chimaev obviously, lands six times more takedowns on average with 57% accuracy. Costa he's only landed 3 takedowns in his UFC career.
And I don't think he does anywhere near the same damage when he gets them, And I just don't see Costa stopping the takedown, but I don't see, say, for example, if Khamzat fights Israel, and I say to you, if Khamzat can't get Israel down outside of hitting him with a lucky shot, I don't see Khamzat winning. That's me. I just don't see. I think Israel will completely outclass him on the feet. But if Khamzat can't get Costa down, I don't know that I give Costa the clear-cut advantage on the feet, whereas I definitely give Khamzat the clear-cut advantage on the ground. Having said that, he can run into a shot from Costa quite easily, and Costa's not dumb. He throws the body shots. I think are the big thing with Costa. Like the way that he goes about dismantling people. Will he be able to do that to Khamzat? I don't know, and I don't think the movement that he has. He's getting a little bit better with it, but he's kind of like a pottering, like stalk you, moving you forward, whereas Gilbert's more explosive and moves in a different way to Costa. I don't see Costa having that the movement and the ability to move with Khamzat. I just don't see it. I see Khamzat kicking him to the legs and Costa going to answer, and Khamzat shooting in on him and taking him down. That's what I see. Or swinging a big right hand and Khamzat hitting the takedown. Now, when Khamzat slips inside, which he does do, Costa could well knock his head off with one of those shots for sure. But I just see the takedown occurring like that. That's how he draws the takedowns out of people. He either swings an overhand right, you got to defend it, and he's already slipped his head inside and drops his level and goes. And also he's dropping his level and throwing uppercuts like he knocked out Aliskerov. So it's a combination of these things. It's hard to keep up with what he's going to do. Once he gets his hands on you, he's no longer in front of you trying to drive that double leg in general. He's happy to spin and get the body lock and pick you up and take you down, and then he can transition to a single leg along the cage if he likes and sweep out the other foot. He's very, very good at that. He's got a very broad arsenal, very high vocabulary of takedowns, but so do all those guys from that Dagestan, Chechnya region. They're very, very good wrestlers. All those guys. That's their style. They have very high vocabulary of grappling. It's not just like single leg, double leg. This is what they're going for. Now they have a lot of different abilities to take you down. So this is very interesting. Sammy, anything else?
No, not really. It's pretty straightforward. I think overall Chimaev has takedowns much better than Costa. At least in the UFC fights. So he's got nearly 6
Randy
times.
Says, sorry, go on.
No, you go.
No, please go. I wasn't going to say anything. Go.
I was going to say Chimaev has nearly 6 times the average ground control per round than Costa. And he's held someone down for 295 seconds. So,
and the other thing that he does when he's looking for the submissions, he's also making you capitulate the positions by striking. He's looking for the wrist right or Dagestani handcuff, whatever you want to call it. He's looking for that, but he's also striking with you. So when he's striking with you, you're forced to defend. You're forced to use your hands to defend yourself instead of getting up, or instead of defending like, jiu-jitsu, grappling stuff. You're not defending him like that. And so it's very, very difficult for people to stop him from getting to better positions. He's able he's able to transition really, really well, like from striking to the next position, which is difficult, man, when you're dealing with that. That's why I don't see Costa being able to. The thing is, I'm going to say this as well. Costa's fucking tough, dude. He can take shots, and he's in there, and he's not a pussy. He'll definitely take shots, and he fights, But I just think that on the ground, the class difference is too big. It's way, way, way too big, and it's kind of like him versus Israel on the feet. And I also feel this with him and Israel on the ground. I don't think that Hamzat versus Israel grappling would necessarily be a victory for Costa. I don't think that. I definitely think that like they would have to grapple. Do you know what I mean? Like they would actually have to grapple, and who knows, maybe Costa gets him. I don't on the feet though. I know Israel will win, and that's been proven. And so I feel like this as well, but in reverse. I don't see him necessarily being able to guarantee a win against Hamzat on the feet. You know, that if Hamzat can't get him down, but he definitely can't outgrapple Hamzat. So that's what I think. Anything else, Sam?
No, not really. It's pretty straightforward for that as well.
Awesome.
This one's even more straightforward. In the UFC, in his 8 UFC fights, Costa hasn't attempted a single submission, whereas Khamzat has attempted 7 in his 6 fights in the UFC, and he's finished 3 of them.
Yeah, and the way he goes for a submission as well, like the way he grappled against Kevin Holland was insane because Holland was defending that. And for anyone that grapples, for you to put the squeeze that Hamzat put on Holland early on in that fight, I don't know how Hamzat's arms would have been the second round, you know what I mean, if he hadn't put Holland away, and Holland's pretty smooth with his striking, see, so who knows how that fight could have played out. But the point of the matter is he puts it on. He knows he's got his positional awareness is it's absolutely phenomenal. Like Holland was doing the Granby rolls, he was doing the whole thing, and Hamzat just rode him out. Wherever he went, Hamzat in the scrambles, Hamzat ended on top. So I don't know that Paulo has a fluidity of movement to do that time and again and be able to not require huge amounts of effort, So I think that is going to be a big problem for him. I think that Hamzat's just going to go for the submission and he's going to go for the scramble. And even if Paulo gets out of it, he's going to wear him down.
And that Holland fight, Kevin Holland is a jiu-jitsu black belt as well.
Yeah, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt, and I think Hamzat's like a blue or a purple, but he would fuck you up badly. Do you know what I mean? Like the guy, if you wrestled at the level that he's wrestled at, he will fucking tap. Especially no gi, he would tap out. Really, 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 really good black belts. And not only that, they just out grappling him would be really hard. If to get an idea, and he's not as good as Bo Nickel at wrestling. It's not open for debate. Like that's when you see Bo Nickel's wrestling credentials, like they're higher, they're different level. Same as Nakamura's. Nakamura's wrestling credentials rival Bo Nickel's, if not better than Bo Nickel's. It's a very, very high level. Those guys, you're not fucking out grappling them. Do you know what I mean? Like you might tap them if you're a really high level jiu-jitsu guy, and people go, Bo Nickel got tapped out by Gordon Ryan. Yeah, all right. Fuck, a lot of people get tapped out by Gordon Ryan, and Gordon's way bigger than him too. But the other thing I was going to say to you is if he doesn't want to go to the ground with you, he's not going to go to the ground with you. It's very, very simple. And you watch him in whatever the event is, you can see it on Fight Pass where he goes against, I forget who the other guy was, but Oliver Taha is one of the guys that he grapples, who's like a legit top 10 grappler for the middleweight division. Like not for fighting, for actual fucking grappling. He's a really, really high level grappler, and they went to a draw. And so that's who Bo Nickel is, you know what I mean? And so when you think about that with a guy like Hamzat, Kevin Holland's a black belt, but Hamzat's a different animal, different animal. So I don't think that it matters if Costa's a black belt or not or whatever. It's not magic. It's not going to be magic because Costa's got a lot of dog in him. He's got a lot of fight in him, but so did Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland did a lot of things right. in that fight to defend it. It wasn't that he didn't do the right things. He got back up, he scrambled, he didn't stop. He never stopped, which is a really big thing. Like when you get taken down, if you stop for a second, then they're able to solidify their position. Kevin Holland never stopped. But when he Granby rolled, Hamzat would just surf him, and people don't understand what like that level is. It's just a different level. So what are we looking at now? The fighter comparison. Oh, you want to go back?
Yeah, yep. This is just their ground strikes. Yeah, obviously, again, it's also a testament to their style. So like comes out, goes to ground and then strikes as well. So in his 6 fights, he's landed 120 ground strikes compared to in Costa's 8 fights, he's only landed 40 odd, whereas and then average per round as well. So he's comes out landing 13 ground strikes per round, and whereas Costa's only landing 2. So if it does go to ground, which it probably will, then again, Chimaev has that advantage on the ground too with those ground strikes.
His ability to, like I said earlier, his positional awareness and his ability to get to where you need to go next. It sounds real basic, but it's fucking hard. Like to know this. So for example, like everyone knows this. If I'm on top and you're in half guard, so we're in that half guard position, you want to most of the times get that left underhook here. He knows that. Everyone knows that. But it's his ability to nullify what you want to do next and already be advancing, already be going to the next thing. It really puts people behind the 8 ball, and then he's able to strike. And when he's able to strike, that exacerbates that position and those things happening, and it just gets deeper and deeper. That's why someone like Gilbert Burns is able to nullify that. It's not so much people go, oh, well, Gilbert Burns, there's no the gut. No, Gilbert Burns' knowledge of grappling is super fucking high. So they're playing this little, it's like almost like the Cold War when they fought. Like they both know these positions and they both know what they have to do and where they have to be. And so that kind of took away from the ground situation, I think, for both of them. And Gilbert couldn't take Chimaev down. Chimaev could take Gilbert down, but Gilbert was aware and knowledgeable of all of those positions and was able to execute as well. But he wasn't able to tap him, but he was also very, very efficient and comfortable in those exchanges, which a lot of people won't be. When I say comfortable, it's all relative. I'm sure Gilbert would have preferred to be on top than on the bottom, but it's a relative thing. Did I explain myself right then, Sammy, or do I just waffle with that?
Yeah.
Does that make sense what I said?
Yeah.
Who knows? All right, moving right along.
Yeah, so here we're just comparing. We've kind of looked at it already, but just from a different cut. So we've still got, we've got all the details and stuff like that of each of the fights they've had in the UFC as well. But probably the next one. So we've used this, and then if you go to the next slide. So here we have, we're comparing their fights where they've ended in a win and in a knockout. So Costa's been knocked out by Israel, but so this is Costa's wins on the left that's ended in a knockout, and then it's got Khamzat's wins on the right hand side that have ended in a knockout. So and Khamzat's have had 2 KOs. They've haven't gone past the first round, and then only one of them. So the last one was punched ahead at distance, and then the one before that, against Reece McKee, was punches to head from mount. So he's gone to ground, and then he's used those, obviously the ground control and then the ground strikes as well.
When you're looking at the striking here, because they don't have any common opponents really to be able to compare like the actual For me, the biggest thing I take away from this is, again, when you start to look at the wins and you think that that Costa has like these crazy wins, you know what I mean? Or that crazy experience. And these are just in their knockouts, right? And when you look at this, Uriah Hall, I'm going to say, was well past it at this point in his career. Gareth McClellan hasn't made waves in that division. No offense to McClellan. I'm sure he'd beat the fuck out of me, but hasn't made waves in that division. Johnny Hendricks, whilst a former champion at welterweight, did not do anything at middleweight and was well past it at that time. Same as Bang Bossy, he the same deal. Like, these are not, this is not prime Romero or prime Chris Weidman in these knockout wins. And then you have for Chimaev, you have Gerald Meerschaert, I'd say, and Reese McKee, and these are just like the knockout wins. And if you add the submission wins, then at least at the catch weight with Kevin Holland, I think that these two start to become quite comparable in their wins, in their actual wins, in their actual stoppages, because Costa has no wins in the UFC by submission that I can think of. So when you add Kevin Holland to this group here, and that was by stoppage, we'll just add Kevin Holland, no one else. This starts to become quite comparable. Then you add Kevin, like, I just don't think that even the experience is on Costa's side. Just when I look at this more, you know what I mean? When this is put like this in front of me and I see these wins right next to each other and I see like a few other things here, I start to see it as the career's quite comparable as far as experience and wins and that go. What do you think, Sammy?
Yeah. I think the probably the key thing is that kind of those KO wins that they've had have kind of tracked their long-term average. So you can see on the right-hand side for Chimaev, his output for total strikes landed has been, average per round has dropped a little bit, but the actual significant strikes has been right on point with his average. The punches to the head, right on point with his average. And then the ground strikes has been a slight increase on his UFC career.
Where do you think this, if you had to make a pick now at this point here, what do you think, Sammy?
As in between these two?
Between the two at this stage, without having added anything else?
I'd have to say Chimaev, but just the way that, he's kind of, started so fast and early and gone straight for the takedown and then done so well on top, like you said before. And then, he just seems a bit mad as well, which is probably just my subjective influence.
All right, we'll move right along. Let's not piss people off. Sammy just coming on here talking trash. This is no way reflects my opinion, Chimaev, of you. So what are we looking at here, Sammy?
So this is comparing all the unanimous decision wins they've had, and obviously Chimaev's only gone the distance with Gilbert Burns, but you can see obviously the second round, like his output's been a lot higher landing than it, compared to his UFC career. But most of his career, he hasn't really gone past the first round. So, the only one that was kind of lacking is in the first round against Gilbert Burns. He only, scored 10 ground strikes compared to, he's usually scoring about double that, about 18, 19.
He did drop Gilbert though in the first round with that right hand, like with a southpaw jab, and so that was very interesting in and of itself. These ones here, again, the decision wins here that we have here, we're looking at is Rockhold and Romero and Gilbert Burns. Name value, they're all three big names, but these two guys, no offense to them, I would say that Yoel Romero at that stage, he was still, but he'd come off some big wars and a couple of big losses, a couple of big wars. He'd had his, he'd had a lot of fights up until this stage. And after that, like after this time period here for Romero's lost a lot of fights after that, around this time period. And Rockhold was 37 years old, hadn't fought for a long time and fought at altitude. So definitely out of these two, when you take that away, I will give, out of these two here, right, I will give that edge to Gilbert as being the higher quality opponent. So that's my take on that. Anything else, Sammy?
No, just that, in that third round against Gilbert as well, he really increased in significant strikes as well. So he's gone from
significant strikes landed. What was the strike differential? Did Gilbert land a lot on him? Because in the fight, when I'm looking at it, Gilbert landed some bombs.
Yeah, he did. So overall, average per round, Gilbert landed 40 to Chimaev's 36 overall for over the whole 3 rounds.
So Gilbert, in fact, landed more significant strikes over the course of the fight, according to these stats.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I thought Hamzat won that fight clearly. I thought it was close but clear. Like I thought he won the first, Gilbert won the second clear, and then the third I thought that Chimaev edged it. But it's also funny because you can't really count the significant strikes in the same way over as a total when you're judging as a 10-point must system, because if you get more strikes than me by a fair margin in your second round, even 20 strikes to 10 or something like this, I just made that arbitrary number up, it's over, the next round, the way that it's judged, it's almost like another fight. So you're really kind of like fighting 3 5-minute fights in the night, and then who did best out of all of them, if that makes sense. So you can have more strikes, but that doesn't mean that you would have won the fight, if that makes sense.
Yes, so in that second round, Gilbert landed 56 significant strikes, and Chimaev only landed 37.
Right.
The second round, Gilbert landed another 20 significant strikes over Chimaev as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else on this slide, Sammy?
No, not really. Just comparing the two for their decision wins. So, yeah.
Okay. What have we got here?
That was just a bit of fun for me in the end. I just looked at all the wins and that by
looks like
UFC
fun
history. So, and just looking at middleweights, because that's obviously what we're looking at. But if you look on the left, you can just see their history in terms of number of wins and by the method as well. So, you can see in the and in the bottom as well, you can see the percentages. So last year, for instance, 36% of the wins in middleweight came through from a knockout. And this year it's 51%. So there's been a dramatic increase in terms of in knockout wins in middleweight.
It's very interesting. Eh? That's just and who know? Do you have any hypothesis what that's attributed to, or do you know?
Oh, not really, but just that there's also a reduction in unanimous decisions as well. So it's there's been an increase as well in submissions. So there's been it's moved from 18% to 24%, but there's also been a reduction in decisions. So it's kind of taken away from those decision wins and put it in the knockouts.
Fuck, that is interesting. All right. Well, to finish up, I just want to ask one thing. We have the current odds, Hamzat Chimaev at -360 and Paulo Costa at +280. Do you think that is accurate? Do you think that, like, just from looking at what we're looking at, is Hamzat almost a 4-1 favorite? Would that be right? Almost 4-1, 3.5 to 1. Am I reading that right? If he's a -360 favorite versus a +280,
I'd say he'd have a clear advantage. Then in terms of accuracy and things like that, they have a fairly similar profile. But if Hamzat can take him down, then I think he'll have that clear advantage.
Do you think it's a 3-1 advantage? Do you think those odds are like would you put
I probably would.
to that? So okay, so you agree that it's that'd be that big of an advantage?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, no, that's very interesting. All right, well, I don't know, man. I think that if Hamzat gets him to the ground, he's definitely like in a grappling match more than 3-1 for sure. In a fight, I think that Costa still has a few ways to victory. I think the odds are probably should be a little bit less than that, but I still think that Hamza can make it look easy if he gets him down. You know, I don't think Costa can do that any other way other than if he catches him. You know, so I think the prediction for me is Hamzat by a win if he can get him down. And I don't see a lot of other ways for Costa to win outside of just clobbering him, just catching him with something short inside. That's my take on that. If nothing else, Sammy, I just want to thank you for being on the show. And I hope that people can track you down, get autographs off you, go mental. Guys, thank you so much. Michael Page says, I don't comment often, but I love this content. Thank you so much, my friend. Guys, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share with your friends. Tell everyone that you know. Nick says, how's it going, everyone? It's going good. Homeless in America. Made some comments about MVP and Izzy. Thank you guys for sharing. Please write in the comments. Let me know who you think will win and why. And please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Guys, thank you so much. Take care.